3 rotations ago, I witnessed the impossible. Commander Thup-9 of the Galactic Supremacy Fleet lay dying in his own purple blood, choking on words that should never have left his mandibles. The humans, he wheezed, his 6 eyes rolling in different directions. They are not what we calculated. No kidding, genius. My name is Zarn-Beta, tactical analyst for the Hegemony War Council, and I have spent the last 40 cycles studying primitive species across 17 star systems. Never, in all my years of cataloging inferior civilizations, had I encountered anything quite like the bipedal mammals from the third planet of Sol system, the species that calls itself humanity. The first mistake? That was all ours. When our scouts returned from Earth's solar system 18 months prior, their reports read like comedy manuscripts. Primitive projectile weapons, they snickered through their breathing slits. Chemical propulsion systems barely capable of escaping their own gravity well. They still burn fossil fuels for Korvax's sake. High Admiral Greeks Prime had laughed so hard his scales rattled. "Send a single destroyer-class vessel," he commanded, waving a dismissive tentacle. "Harvest their resources, catalog their biology. Move on to the next system." That destroyer was the HFY Obliterator, crew of 2,000, armed with plasma cannons, capable of cracking moons, shielding that could deflect asteroid impacts. It never came home. The second mistake. Sending 3 destroyers. They met the same fate as the first. But this time we had partial communications before the signals went dark. Panicked transmissions about impossible maneuvers and weapons that defy physics flooded our communication arrays. The last message came from Captain Vel 7. "They are using their own ships as missiles. Repeat, the humans are ramming our vessels at relativistic speeds. Suicidal maniacs," we concluded. Clearly this species possessed some kind of death wish programming. We updated our tactical databases accordingly. The third mistake? Well, that one nearly cost us the war. High Admiral Greeks Prime decided to take Earth personally. He assembled the 13th Battle Fleet, 47 destroyer-class vessels, 12 dreadnoughts, 3 planetary siege platforms, and his flagship, the ISV Eternal Dominance. 200,000 of the hegemony's finest warriors, armed with the most advanced technology in known space. "We shall study their death wish behavior up close," Greeks Prime announced to the assembled fleet. "Perhaps their suicidal tendencies can be weaponized for our own purposes." The fleet departed from Hegemony Central on the first day of the harvest season. They were scheduled to return within 6 rotations, carrying Earth's resources and a comprehensive biological sample of humanity. They never returned. What did return was a single escape pod, badly damaged, containing 3 survivors and 1 very traumatized communications officer named Beck 4. The poor creature spent the first week in medical sedation, muttering the same phrase over and over. "They know things. They know things we do not." When Bex 4 finally regained enough sanity to file a coherent report, the War Council gathered in emergency session. What we heard changed everything we thought we knew about warfare itself. Admiral Beck 4 began, his voice trembling like a hatchling's. "The humans were ready for us." "Impossible," scoffed General Crix 2. "Our intelligence indicated a fragmented species with no unified planetary defense." "That intelligence was wrong, sir. Dead wrong." Beck 4's mandibles clicked nervously. "They had been tracking our scouts for months. Every probe we sent, every reconnaissance mission, they knew we were coming." The War Council exchanged glances. "Our stealth technology was supposedly undetectable by primitive civilizations." "Continue," ordered Admiral Greeks Prime, though his usual arrogance had dimmed considerably. "When we dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of their solar system, they were waiting. Hundreds of ships, Admiral, not the crude chemical rockets our scouts reported, but vessels that moved like nothing in our tactical databases. Fast, impossibly fast." "How fast?" I interjected, already running calculations in my head. "They engaged us at 0.7 light speed, sir, without any apparent stress to their hulls or crews." The room fell silent. Our own ships could barely manage 0.3 light speed without suffering structural damage. "Their weapons," Beck 4 continued, "were unlike anything we had encountered. Not energy-based like ours, but kinetic projectiles accelerated to near light speeds. They punched through our shields like they were made of gas. That should be impossible, muttered Chief Engineer Yol-6. Kinetic weapons at those velocities would require energy expenditures greater than a star's output. Tell that to the wreckage of the 13th Fleet, Beck-4 replied dryly. But the real revelation was yet to come. Admiral Beck-4 said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, they were talking to us during the battle, in our own language. Perfect hegemony standard, complete with military protocols and tactical terminology. The temperature in the council chamber seemed to drop several degrees. They knew our ship classifications, our weapon capabilities, even our standard operating procedures. When Captain Morse of their lead vessel demanded our surrender, she addressed Admiral Grix Prime by his full military rank and service record. Captain Morse. I filed that name away for future reference. How did they learn our language? Asked General Grix II. That's just it, sir. They didn't learn it. They already knew it. Along with 17 other hegemony dialects, including some that are classified above my clearance level, the implications hit the Council like a plasma burst to the brain. Either humanity had been in contact with other hegemony forces without our knowledge, or they possessed intelligence capabilities that made our own look primitive by comparison. There's more, Beck-4 said, though I wasn't sure any of us wanted to hear it. Their ships, they were built using our technology. Not copied or reverse-engineered, built using actual hegemony components that they somehow acquired. Acquired how? Demanded Admiral Grix Prime. Unknown, sir, but our sensor readings confirmed it. Hegemony plasma cores, hegemony shield generators, even hegemony navigation systems. All seamlessly integrated with their own technology in ways our engineers claimed were impossible. I leaned forward in my seat. What happened to Admiral Grix Prime? Beck-4's eyes grew distant. He requested a formal parley with the human commander. Said he wanted to understand how they had obtained our technology. And Captain Morse agreed. She came aboard the Eternal Dominance with a small escort. No weapons that our scanners could detect. Admiral Grix Prime met with her in the main conference chamber. The communications officer paused, his breathing becoming irregular. What happened in that meeting? I pressed. I don't know, sir. I wasn't present. But 20 minutes later, Captain Morse left the ship. 5 minutes after that, Admiral Grix Prime ordered the fleet to surrender unconditionally. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. Hegemony admirals did not surrender. Ever. It was biologically impossible. Our genetic conditioning prevented it. Surrender? Roared General Grix II. That's impossible. What did the human do to him? Unknown, sir. Admiral Grix Prime was different after the meeting. Quiet, thoughtful. He kept muttering something about elegant solutions and seeing the larger picture. Did he explain his decision? Only once, sir. When Commander Thog-9 questioned the surrender order, Admiral Grix Prime said, "They offered us something worth more than victory. They offered us understanding." Understanding. What kind of understanding could make a hegemony admiral surrender an entire battle fleet? The humans treated our surrendered forces well, Beck-4 continued. Better than well. Actually, they provided medical care, proper food, even entertainment during the processing. Processing? Debriefing, sir. Each crew member was interviewed individually. Nothing invasive or threatening. Just questions about our technology, our culture, our motivations for the attack, and our people answered these questions willingly. Yes, sir. Enthusiastically in many cases. The humans seemed genuinely interested in learning about us. Not as conquerors studying their subjects, but as colleagues. Colleagues. The word tasted strange in my mouth. We were the superior species here. We were the conquerors. How had the dynamic shifted so completely? What happened to our ships? Asked Chief Engineer Yol-6. Returned to us, sir. All of them. Fully repaired and upgraded. The engineers' tentacles went rigid with shock. Upgraded? Their engineers had corrected several design flaws in our propulsion systems, improved our shield efficiency by 30%, even optimized our life support systems for better crew comfort. They gave us back better ships than we brought? Yes, sir. along with detailed technical documentation explaining all the improvements. I was beginning to understand why Admiral Grix Prime had surrendered. This wasn't conquest, as we knew it. This was something else entirely. "Where is Admiral Grix Prime now?" I asked. "Still on Earth, sir. By his own choice. He requested extended cultural exchange status." "He defected?" "Not defected, sir. He says he's conducting research. Important research that could benefit the entire hegemony." The Council fell silent as we processed this information. Our most decorated admiral, victor of 43 campaigns, had voluntarily remained with the enemy to conduct research. "Beck 4, I said carefully. "In your professional opinion, do the humans pose a threat to the hegemony?" The communications officer considered this for a long moment. "Sir, I believe the humans pose a threat to our understanding of what threats actually are." That response would haunt me for weeks. After the session, I retreated to my private analysis chamber to review the data. Something wasn't adding up. How had a primitive civilization developed such advanced capabilities so quickly? Where had they acquired hegemony technology? And most importantly, what kind of understanding had they offered Admiral Grix Prime that was worth more than military victory? I accessed our intelligence databases and began cross-referencing every mention of Earth and humanity over the past century. What I found made my scales stand on end. The humans had been preparing for us much longer than anyone realized. Deep space monitoring stations had detected the first hegemony scout probes 15 years ago. Since then, they had been quietly building a defensive network that spanned their entire solar system. But that wasn't the most disturbing discovery. According to our own classified files, 3 hegemony exploration vessels had gone missing in the Sol system over the past 50 years. All had been assumed destroyed by natural phenomena. Now I suspected they had met a very different fate. The humans hadn't stolen our technology. They had been reverse engineering it for decades, probably from those missing ships, and they had done something with it that we had never thought possible. They had improved it. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. I activated the communication array, expecting another routine briefing from the War Council. Instead, I found myself looking at a human face. She was smaller than I had expected, with pale skin, brown hair, and the strangest blue eyes I had ever seen. Her expression was calm, almost friendly, but there was something behind those eyes that made my survival instincts scream warnings. "Greetings, tactical analyst Zarn-Beta," she said in perfect hegemony standard. "My name is Captain Sarah Ellis of the Earth Defense Coalition. I believe you have been studying our recent encounter with your 13th Battle Fleet." My blood temperature dropped several degrees. How did she know my name? How did she know what I was working on? "I apologize for the intrusion," Captain Ellis continued. "But we felt it was important to establish direct communication with the Hegemony War Council's primary tactical analyst. How are you accessing our secure networks?" I managed to ask. "Admiral Grix Prime provided us with the necessary access codes," she replied matter-of-factly. He felt that direct communication would be more efficient than working through intermediaries. Grix Prime had given the humans access to our military networks. The implications were staggering. "What do you want?" I asked, though I suspected I wouldn't like the answer. "To talk," Captain Ellis said simply. "You see, we have a proposition for the Hegemony War Council, something that could benefit both our species immensely." "And what makes you think we would be interested in anything you have to offer?" Captain Ellis smiled, and I suddenly understood why Admiral Grix Prime had surrendered. There was something in that smile that suggested she knew secrets that even we didn't know. "Because, tactical analyst Zarn-Beta, we know something about warfare that your species has forgotten. Something that could change the balance of power in this galaxy forever." "And what might that be?" "That the greatest victories are won not by destroying your enemies," she said, her blue eyes seeming to look directly into my soul, "but by turning them into allies." The communication ended, leaving me staring at a blank screen and contemplating the most terrifying possibility of all, that humanity wasn't trying to defeat us. They were trying to recruit us. And from what I had seen of their capabilities, they might just succeed. The War Council meeting that followed Captain Ellis's transmission was the bloodiest in hegemony history. Not because of external combat, but because half the council tried to kill the other half with their bare claws. General Crix II launched himself across the conference table at Admiral Torfeif, screaming about treason and collaboration. Chief Engineer Yol 6 activated his emergency combat protocols and began firing plasma bursts at anyone who suggested negotiating with humans. The meeting devolved into a full-scale brawl that left 3 counselors dead and the chamber looking like a war zone. I watched this magnificent display of military intelligence from my corner seat, taking careful notes. If this was how our leadership reacted to a simple communication, how would they handle actual human strategy? The answer came sooner than expected. High Command decided that Captain Ellis's message was an elaborate psychological warfare tactic. No species offers to recruit their enemies, declared Acting Admiral Nex Prime, stepping over General Crix II's bleeding corpse. This is clearly an attempt to sow confusion in our ranks. With respect, sir, I interjected. Their previous actions suggest otherwise. Explain. I activated the holographic display showing tactical analyses from the destroyed fleets. Every human engagement has followed the same pattern. They disable rather than destroy. They capture rather than kill. They return our people in better condition than they found them. Your point? Sir, these are not the actions of a species intent on our destruction. They could have annihilated the 13th Fleet completely. Instead, they returned 98% of our personnel alive and unharmed. Acting Admiral Nex Prime's scales bristled. Are you suggesting we surrender to these primitives? I'm suggesting we consider the possibility that they're not primitives at all. The remaining council members exchanged glances. In the hegemony, suggesting that another species might be technologically superior was considered borderline heretical. Tactical analyst Zarn-Beta. Acting Admiral Nex Prime said slowly, "You are hereby tasked with developing a comprehensive response to the human threat. You have unlimited resources and full access to our military archives." What kind of response, sir? The kind that ends with Earth burning and every human in the galaxy begging for the mercy of death. Right, subtle as always. I spent the next rotation cycle deep in the archives, pulling every piece of data we had on human military capabilities. What I found painted a picture that would have given nightmares to creatures capable of having them. The 3 missing hegemony exploration vessels? I found the classified reports. The HFY Pioneer had vanished 53 years ago while conducting a routine survey of the solar system. The ISV Wanderer disappeared 41 years ago under similar circumstances. The RSV Explorer went missing just 28 years ago. Each ship had been crewed by our finest scientists and engineers. Each had carried complete databases of hegemony technology. Each had simply stopped reporting. But here's where it got interesting. Our long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures in the Sol system during each disappearance. Signatures consistent with controlled fusion reactions and antimatter containment. Technologies that humans supposedly didn't possess. They had been studying us for over half a century, learning from our best minds, reverse engineering our most advanced systems, and then improving them in ways we hadn't thought possible. I was beginning to understand why Admiral Grix Prime had found their offer so compelling. My research was interrupted by priority alerts flooding the communication arrays. Another hegemony fleet was under attack, this time in the Regal system. But this wasn't one of our expeditionary forces. This was the Second Home Fleet, responsible for defending our primary colony worlds. The attackers, humans, but according to our intelligence, humanity barely had the technology to reach their own moon. How were they launching attacks 300 light-years from Earth? I accessed the real-time battle feeds and watched in horrified fascination as human forces systematically dismantled the Second Home Fleet. Their ships moved with impossible coordination, executing maneuvers that defied every law of physics I knew. They communicated in real time across vast distances without any detectable transmission lag. But the most disturbing aspect wasn't their technology. It was their tactics. The humans weren't just winning, they were teaching. "Hegemony, Vessel Dominator," came a calm human voice over the battlefield communications. "Your current firing solution is inefficient. Adjusting your plasma cannon convergence by 12 degrees would increase your hit probability by 37%. Human vessel, replied Captain Kex-8 of the Dominator. Why are you providing tactical advice to your enemy? Because inefficient combat is wasteful, responded the human commander. We prefer elegant solutions. Elegant solutions. Where had I heard that phrase before? The battle continued with this bizarre commentary. Human forces would attack a hegemony vessel, disable its weapons without destroying the ship, then offer detailed analysis of the tactical errors that led to the defeat. They were conducting a live-fire training exercise using our own fleets as unwilling students. Your shield harmonics are poorly calibrated, another human voice advised the crew of the HFY Retribution. We're transmitting optimal frequency settings to improve efficiency by 40%. This is madness, roared Admiral Cook-7, commanding the Second Home Fleet. You attack us while offering improvements to our defenses. Admiral, came the reply from what I assumed was the human fleet commander. We're not attacking you, we're auditing you. Auditing. They were auditing our military performance like accountants reviewing expense reports. The Second Home Fleet surrendered within 4 hours. Not because they were outgunned, though they certainly were. Not because they were outmaneuvered, though they definitely were. They surrendered because the humans had convinced them that continuing to fight was professionally embarrassing. When Admiral Cook-7 formally requested terms of surrender, the human response nearly made me laugh out loud. Terms? Asked the human commander. Admiral, this isn't a surrender, this is a performance review. Please prepare your senior staff for debriefing sessions beginning at 0800 tomorrow. We'll be discussing tactical inefficiencies, equipment optimization, and career development opportunities within the Earth Defense Coalition. Career development opportunities. They were recruiting our officers during active combat operations. I forwarded the battle recordings to Acting Admiral Nex Prime along with my preliminary analysis. His response arrived within minutes. Prepare the Omega Protocol. The Omega Protocol. I hadn't heard that phrase in over 20 cycles. It was our ultimate contingency plan, reserved for threats to the very existence of the hegemony. The protocol authorized the deployment of planet-killer weapons, genocide protocols, and the complete sterilization of entire star systems. Apparently, humans offering career advice qualified as an existential threat. The Omega Fleet assembled at the edge of hegemony space within 2 rotations. 15,000 vessels ranging from patrol frigates to moon-sized dreadnoughts. Every weapon in our arsenal, including several that violated galactic warfare conventions. This wasn't a military expedition. This was an extinction event. I was assigned as senior tactical coordinator, responsible for ensuring that not a single human survived the coming assault. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had become the architect of humanity's destruction based entirely on their success at not destroying us. The fleet departed for Earth on the 7th day of the war season. Our destination, complete eradication of human civilization. We never made it. 3 days into our journey, while still in hyperspace, something impossible happened. Human vessels began materializing inside our fleet formation, not entering hyperspace from normal space, but actually materializing within our hyperspace bubble. Sir, reported sensor operator Jack 4, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm reading over 300 human vessels. They appear to be keeping pace with us. In hyperspace? I asked. That's impossible. Nothing can intercept a fleet in hyperspace transit. Tell that to them, sir. I accessed the tactical displays and stared at formations of human ships moving in perfect synchronization with our fleet. They weren't just intercepting us. They were escorting us. Fleet command to all vessels, came Acting Admiral Nex Prime's voice over the communication array. Prepare for immediate combat. All ships, exit hyperspace and engage the enemy. Admiral, I interjected, respectfully suggest we reconsider. If they can intercept us in hyperspace, their capabilities exceed our worst-case scenarios. Noted and ignored. Tactical analyst. All ships, execute emergency translation. The Omega Fleet dropped out of hyperspace in a ragged formation, weapons charging and shields at maximum. We found ourselves in an empty region of space, light-years from any star system. But we weren't alone. Surrounding us was the largest fleet I had ever seen. Human vessels stretched in every direction, their formations so vast that our sensors couldn't map the edges. Conservative estimates put their numbers in the hundreds of thousands. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Coalition flagship Unity," came a calm human voice. "Omega Fleet, you are trespassing in Earth Defense Coalition space. This is unclaimed territory," roared Acting Admiral Nex Prime. "No species has sovereignty here." "Admiral, you are mistaken. The Earth Defense Coalition has claimed territorial rights to this entire sector as of 4 hours ago. We have filed the appropriate paperwork with the Galactic Registry." Paperwork. They had beaten us to a strategic location by filing paperwork. "I don't care about your bureaucratic manipulations," Nex Prime snarled. All ships opened fire. The Omega Fleet unleashed everything. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, gravitational distortion weapons, temporal displacement devices. We threw enough firepower to crack planets at the human formations. Not a single shot connected. The human ships moved like liquid mercury, flowing around our attacks with impossible grace. But more disturbing than their evasion was their response. They didn't fire back. Instead, Captain Webb's voice returned to the communication array. "Omega Fleet, your targeting algorithms are severely outdated. We're transmitting improved firing solutions to enhance your accuracy." "What?" gasped Acting Admiral Nex Prime. "Your quantum torpedo guidance systems are running firmware that's at least 30 cycles old," continued Captain Webb helpfully. "The updated version includes predictive targeting matrices that should improve your hit ratios significantly." They were critiquing our weapons technology while we were actively trying to kill them. "Additionally," Captain Webb added, "your fleet formation is vulnerable to concentrated assault on your port flank. Recommend repositioning vessels 7 through 23 to provide better coverage." Acting Admiral Nex Prime's response was a mixture of rage and confusion that I couldn't adequately translate. He ordered another full-scale assault, this time focusing on the tactical improvements the humans had provided. The results were exactly as Captain Webb had predicted. Our accuracy improved dramatically. Our formation became more defensive. Our tactical efficiency increased by nearly 40%. We still couldn't hit anything. "Much better," came Captain Webb's approving voice. "Your gunners are learning quickly. However, your power distribution is still suboptimal. Try rerouting 30% of your defensive grid output to your primary weapons array." "Why are you helping us?" I transmitted directly to Captain Webb. "Because inefficient warfare offends us. Tactical analyst is Zarn-Beta. Your species has tremendous potential, but your tactical doctrines are based on outdated assumptions about space combat. You know who I am. We know all of you. Admiral Grix Prime has been quite thorough in his briefings. What has he told you? That the hegemony military complex is trapped by its own success. You've conquered so many primitive species that you've forgotten how to fight equals." The truth of that statement hit me like a plasma burst to the gut. For 300 cycles, the hegemony had faced nothing but inferior opposition. We had grown complacent, arrogant, tactically stagnant. "But you're not equals," I protested. "You're primitives who barely achieved spaceflight 50 years ago. 47 years, actually," Captain Webb corrected. "But we had excellent teachers. The missing exploration vessels. The crews of the Pioneer, Wanderer, and Explorer have been invaluable in understanding hegemony technology and military doctrine. They've been working with our engineers for decades to develop countermeasures for exactly this scenario." My blood temperature dropped to near freezing levels. "Working with you? Voluntarily? Of course. Why wouldn't they? We offered them something the hegemony never did, the opportunity to see their work appreciated and improved upon. They betrayed their own species. Tactical analyst Zarn-Beta. They helped us save their species. Your current tactical approach would result in the complete destruction of both our civilizations. Neither of us wants that outcome. Then what do you want? To offer the hegemony the same opportunity we offered your individual crews: partnership instead of domination, collaboration instead of conquest, progress instead of stagnation." The Omega Fleet had ceased firing, not because of damage or tactical failure, but because continuing the assault had become professionally embarrassing. We were being outclassed so completely that our own weapons officers were requesting permission to study with the enemy. Acting Admiral Nex Prime, came Captain Webb's voice. We would like to extend an invitation to you and your senior staff. Please join us aboard the Unity for a strategic planning session. A trap, snarled Nex Prime. Admiral, if we wanted to destroy your fleet, we would have done so already. This invitation is for your benefit, not ours. Never. I will not surrender to primitive aliens. Admiral, I interjected. With respect, they're not asking you to surrender. They're asking you to learn. Acting Admiral Nex Prime turned his full attention to me, his scales bristling with rage. Tactical analyst Zarn-Beta, are you suggesting that we have something to learn from these creatures? I looked at the tactical displays showing thousands of human vessels maintaining perfect formations while our own fleet struggled with basic coordination. I thought about Admiral Grix Prime's voluntary defection and the mysteriously improved performance of returned hegemony crews. Sir, I said carefully, I'm suggesting that they've already learned everything from us. The question is whether we're willing to learn from them. The communication arrays crackled with an incoming priority transmission. Acting Admiral Nex Prime activated the display, expecting another message from Captain Webb. Instead, we found ourselves looking at Admiral Grix Prime himself, standing in what appeared to be a human command center. He looked healthier than I had ever seen him, his scales bright and his posture confident. Greetings, Omega Fleet, Admiral Grix Prime said, his voice carrying none of the strain I remembered. I trust Captain Webb has been treating you well. Grix Prime, roared Acting Admiral Nex Prime. You are under arrest for treason and collaboration with enemy forces. Enemy forces? Admiral Grix Prime laughed, a sound I had never heard from him before. My dear Nex Prime, these aren't our enemies, they're our teachers. They destroyed the 13th Fleet. They improved the 13th Fleet. Every ship returned home better than it left. Every crew member gained knowledge that would have taken decades to acquire through traditional means. Knowledge gained through betrayal. Knowledge gained through cooperation, Admiral Grix Prime corrected. Nex Prime, the humans aren't trying to conquer us. They're trying to elevate us. Elevate us to what? To our potential. Admiral Grix Prime's expression became serious. The galaxy is vast, and there are threats out there that make our little territorial disputes look like hatchling games. The humans have seen these threats. They're preparing for them. What threats? I asked. That, Admiral Grix Prime said, is something you'll need to see for yourself. Captain Webb, permission to bring the Omega Fleet to the Revelation Chamber? Permission granted, Admiral. Transmitting coordinates now. What is the Revelation Chamber? Demanded Acting Admiral Nex Prime. The reason, Admiral Grix Prime replied, that humanity is so desperate to recruit every advanced species they can find, including us. The coordinates led us to Earth itself. As the Omega Fleet approached the Sol system, I expected to see the primitive world our scouts had described. Instead, I found myself looking at something that redefined my understanding of what civilization could achieve. Earth wasn't just a planet anymore. It was a fortress. Orbital platforms the size of moons surrounded the world, connected by streams of traffic that spoke of massive industrial capacity. The space around Earth buzzed with activity on a scale that dwarfed anything in hegemony space. But even more impressive than the infrastructure was what lay beyond it. Ships. Thousands upon thousands of ships representing dozens of different technologies and design philosophies. Many I recognized as hegemony designs, but others were completely alien. Welcome to the Coalition, Captain Webb announced as our fleet entered Earth's defensive perimeter. Home to 47 different species, all working toward a common goal. 47 species, I whispered. And counting. The Regillians joined last month. The Centauri Collective signed the Accords 3 weeks ago. Even the Vegan Empire has been sending diplomatic feelers. What goal? Acting Admiral Nex Prime asked, his voice subdued. Survival, Admiral Grix Prime answered. You see, Nex Prime, humanity discovered something about our galaxy that the rest of us missed. Something terrible is coming. Something that will make all our petty wars irrelevant. The Revelation Chamber will show you, Captain Webb added. But I warn you, once you see what's out there, you'll understand why we can't afford to fight each other anymore. As our fleet settled into orbit around Earth, I realized that everything I thought I knew about warfare, about conquest, about the balance of power in the galaxy, was about to change forever. The humans hadn't been trying to defeat us. They had been trying to save us from something far worse than defeat. The revelation chamber wasn't what I expected. No ominous architecture, no dramatic lighting, no ceremonial nonsense. Just a simple spherical room deep within Earth's orbital fortress, lined with what appeared to be ordinary display screens. Disappointing, muttered Acting Admiral Nex Prime as our delegation was escorted inside. I expected something more threatening. Captain Webb smiled that unsettling human smile. Admiral, the most dangerous things in the universe rarely announce themselves with fanfare. She activated the display systems, and suddenly we weren't standing in a chamber anymore. We were floating in space, surrounded by a three-dimensional representation of our entire galaxy. Stars sparkled around us like tiny jewels, spiral arms sweeping through the darkness in majestic curves. "Beautiful," whispered Chief Engineer Yol 6. "Now watch," Captain Webb said, her expression becoming grim. The display shifted, zooming out to show neighboring galaxies. The Andromeda spiral hung in the distance, its familiar outline clearly visible. But there was something wrong with the image. Dark patches marred Andromeda's structure, spreading like an infection through its spiral arms. "What are those dark regions?" I asked. "Dead zones," Admiral Grix Prime answered, his voice heavy. "Places where every star has been extinguished." "Extinguished how?" Captain Webb manipulated the controls, focusing on one of the dark patches. As the image resolved, I felt my survival instincts screaming warnings. Where there should have been star systems, there was nothing. Not empty space, but actual nothingness. Void that seemed to absorb light itself. "We call them the Devourers," Captain Webb explained. "An intelligence so alien that we can barely comprehend their existence. They don't conquer star systems, they unmake them. Convert matter and energy into something else. Something that exists outside our understanding of physics." "How do you know about them?" demanded Acting Admiral Nex Prime. "Because they've been sending scouts into our galaxy for the past 60 years, Admiral Grix Prime replied. "Small probes, barely detectable, testing our defenses and cataloging our civilizations." The display shifted again, showing our own galaxy. Tiny red markers appeared scattered throughout the spiral arms, each representing a Devourer probe sighting. There were hundreds of them. "Every advanced civilization in the galaxy has encountered these scouts," Captain Webb continued. "Most dismissed them as sensor ghosts or natural phenomena. Only humans had the paranoia to assume they represented an invasion force." "Paranoia?" I asked. "One of our greatest strengths," Captain Webb said with pride. "When you're a young species on a planet full of predators, you learn to see threats everywhere. It keeps you alive." "The probes have been increasing in frequency," Admiral Grix Prime added. "Our best estimates suggest a full-scale invasion will begin within 50 years. 50 years? Chief Engineer Yol 6 scales paled. "That's no time at all for military preparation." "Exactly," Captain Webb agreed. "Which is why humanity began the Coalition Project. We needed every advanced species in the galaxy working together, sharing technology and resources, preparing for a threat unlike anything we've ever faced." "And if we had refused?" Acting Admiral Nex Prime asked. "Then we would have faced the Devourers with whatever allies we could find," Captain Webb replied simply. "But our chances of survival would have dropped to near zero." The display changed to show tactical projections. Devourer forces advancing through the galaxy while Coalition fleets tried desperately to hold them back. The simulations were brutal. Even with the combined might of all known civilizations, humanity's models predicted a 70% chance of complete galactic extinction. "These projections assume full cooperation," Admiral Grix Prime noted. "Without the hegemony's industrial capacity and military expertise, that 70% drops to 20%. A 1 in 5 chance of survival for every living being in the galaxy." "You manipulated us into joining," I said, understanding, finally dawning. We convinced you to join, Captain Webb corrected. By demonstrating that cooperation was more effective than conquest. Every battle we fought with hegemony forces was designed to prove that point. You could have simply told us about the Devourers from the beginning. Would you have believed us? Admiral Grix Prime asked. Would the War Council have accepted the word of primitive aliens about a galactic threat? I thought about the council meeting where 3 members had died simply discussing human communications. No. We would have assumed it was a trick. So we showed you instead, Captain Webb said, demonstrated our capabilities, our intentions, our commitment to mutual benefit rather than domination. By humiliating our fleets. By teaching your fleets. Every encounter was a lesson in advanced tactics and technology. Every surrender was an opportunity for your people to see what cooperation could achieve. The chamber's displays shifted to show the current state of coalition forces. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all working together with a coordination that made hegemony military efficiency look primitive. How many species have joined? I asked. 49 as of this morning? Captain Webb replied. The Altarian Republic signed the Accords 3 hours ago, and they all agreed to this alliance willingly. Once they saw the evidence. Yes, most species are remarkably pragmatic when facing extinction. What about the holdouts? Captain Webb's expression darkened. The Vorthan Empire refuses to acknowledge the threat. They're convinced it's an elaborate human deception designed to steal their territory. And they'll learn the truth soon enough. Devourer scouts have been detected in Vorthan space. Real ones this time, not our simulation probes. Simulation probes. I filed that detail away for later analysis. You've been testing us, I said. All of us. The probe sightings, the mysterious disappearances, even some of the Devourer encounters. We had to understand how each species would react to the threat, Admiral Grix Prime confirmed. Panic, denial, aggression, cooperation. Each response told us how to approach that civilization. And the hegemony's response, predictable, Captain Webb said with amusement. Immediate military escalation followed by stubborn refusal to acknowledge superior opposition. Exactly what we expected from a conquest-based civilization. So you planned our defeats from the beginning? We planned your education. The defeats were just the delivery mechanism. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority alert. Captain Webb accessed the communication array, her expression becoming instantly serious. Report, she commanded. Captain, we're receiving distress signals from the Vorthan frontier, came a human voice. Long-range sensors confirm multiple Devourer incursions across 7 star systems. Real incursions. Captain Webb asked. Confirmed, real, Captain. The Vorthan Third Fleet is engaging unknown hostiles. Early reports indicate massive casualties. Acting Admiral Nex Prime's scales bristled. Are you going to help them? Of course, Captain Webb replied. Coalition vessels are already en route, but the Vorthans have refused our assistance for the past 18 months. They're not prepared for what they're facing. Show us, I demanded. The chamber's displays activated, showing real-time feeds from the Vorthing frontier. What I saw made my blood freeze in my veins. The Devourer ships were unlike anything in our tactical databases. They moved like living things, flowing and shifting as they advanced. Where they passed, space itself seemed to wither. Stars dimmed and died. Planets simply vanished, leaving behind expanding spheres of that terrible nothingness. By the ancestors, whispered Chief Engineer Yol-6. They're unmaking reality itself. The Vorthans are fighting bravely, Admiral Grix Prime observed, watching Vorthan vessels charge suicidally at the advancing darkness. But their weapons are having no effect. Conventional weapons can't damage Devourer vessels, Captain Webb explained. They exist partially outside normal spacetime. You need quantum-phased weaponry synchronized to multi-dimensional targeting matrices. Do we have such weapons? Acting Admiral Nex Prime asked. We do now, Captain Webb replied. Developed through coalition research efforts combining human innovation, hegemony engineering and technologies from 47 other species. The displays showed coalition forces arriving at the battle zone. Human ships worked alongside vessels I recognized as hegemony designs, but modified with technologies I couldn't identify. They moved with perfect coordination, their attacks synchronized across dimensional barriers I didn't even know existed. "Watch carefully," Captain Webb said. "This is why the Coalition exists." The Coalition fleet engaged the Devourer forces with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. Beams of impossible energy struck the alien vessels, causing them to convulse and retreat into whatever dimension they inhabited. But for every Devourer ship damaged, 2 more emerged from the darkness. "They're adapting," Admiral Grix Prime noted grimly. "Just like the simulations predicted." "How long can the Coalition hold them?" I asked. "With current resources. Perhaps 6 months before they break through to the core systems." Captain Webb replied, "With full hegemony integration, maybe 2 years. That's still not enough time." "No, it's not, which is why Phase 2 of the Coalition project is already underway." "Phase 2? Captain Webb manipulated the controls, and the display showed something that made my mind reel. Massive construction projects in deep space. Structures the size of small moons connected by streams of energy that defied physics. "The synthesis array," Admiral Grix Prime explained. "A weapons system designed to target the Devourer's home dimension directly." "You're planning to attack their galaxy?" "We're planning to seal their galaxy off from ours," Captain Webb corrected. "Create a dimensional barrier that will prevent further incursions." "Is such a thing possible?" "According to our combined research, yes, but it requires the industrial output of every advanced civilization in the galaxy working in perfect coordination. And if it fails, then we evacuate what we can to the Magellanic Clouds and hope the Devourers don't follow us there." The battlefeed showed Vorthan vessels being systematically destroyed despite Coalition support. Their commanders were refusing tactical coordination, insisting on maintaining their traditional formation, fighting even as their ships died around them. "Idiots," muttered Acting Admiral Nex Prime. "They're getting themselves killed out of pride." "Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford," Captain Webb said sadly. "Admiral Nex Prime, I'm offering the Hegemony full Coalition membership. Complete technology sharing, joint command structure, equal representation in strategic planning. In exchange for total commitment to the war effort. Every ship, every resource, every innovation your people can provide." Acting Admiral Nex Prime looked at the tactical displays showing Coalition forces fighting desperately against an enemy that could literally erase star systems from existence. He watched Vorthan ships die because their commanders couldn't adapt to new realities. "What guarantees do we have that humanity won't use this alliance to dominate us after the threat passes?" Captain Webb's laugh was bitter. "Admiral, if we survive this war, humanity will be too busy rebuilding civilization to worry about domination. Besides, the Coalition was designed with checks and balances specifically to prevent any single species from gaining control. And if the war is lost, then domination becomes irrelevant. The Devourers don't conquer, they unmake. Every living thing in the galaxy dies, and the universe forgets we ever existed." I watched the battlefeeds as Coalition forces executed a fighting retreat, saving what Vorthan vessels they could while falling back to defensive positions. The cooperation between different species was flawless, each fleet compensating for the other's weaknesses. "The Hegemony military doctrine is based on conquest through superior force," I observed. "This requires cooperation through mutual dependence. Can our people adapt?" "Your people already have," Admiral Grix Prime replied. "Every crew that returned from human capture brought back new tactical knowledge and perspectives. They've been quietly implementing Coalition principles throughout the fleet. Without authorization?" "Innovation doesn't wait for authorization," Captain Webb said. "It happens when people see better ways of doing things." Acting Admiral Nex Prime studied the displays for several long minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of species-wide decision. "The Hegemony accepts Coalition membership, full integration, joint command, shared resources." "Just like that?" I asked, surprised by the lack of political maneuvering. Tactical analyst Zarn-Beta. "When you're facing extinction, bureaucracy becomes a fatal luxury. We join the Coalition, or we die with the Vorthans." Captain Webb nodded respectfully. Welcome to the Coalition, Admiral. Your integration specialists are standing by to begin technology transfers immediately. How long before hegemony forces can be equipped with anti-devourer weaponry? With your industrial capacity added to ours? 6 weeks for basic quantum phase weapons, 12 weeks for full multidimensional targeting systems. And the synthesis array? Construction time drops from 20 years to 7 with hegemony engineering support. 7 years. If the Coalition could hold the line for 7 years, they could end the threat permanently. The battle feeds showed the last Vorthan vessels retreating through Coalition covering fire. What had been a thriving frontier sector was now an expanding sphere of nothingness, growing larger with each passing hour. The Vorthans will request Coalition assistance now, Admiral Grix Prime predicted. They already have, Captain Webb confirmed, checking her communication arrays. Their entire government is in emergency session. Surrender terms are being negotiated. Not surrender, I corrected, finally understanding humanity's true genius. Recruitment. You're recruiting them even as they flee for their lives. Crisis creates opportunity for perspective change, Captain Webb agreed. The Vorthans will become some of our most dedicated Coalition members. Nothing motivates cooperation like watching your neighbors get erased from existence. How many more species need to see this demonstration? None, if we're lucky. Word travels fast when it involves extinction-level threats. The displays shifted to show galactic communication networks lighting up with emergency transmissions. Every major civilization was receiving reports from the Vorthan frontier. Fear was spreading faster than the Devourer incursion itself. They'll all join now, Acting Admiral Nex Prime observed. Not from conviction, but from terror. Terror is sufficient motivation for initial cooperation, Captain Webb replied. Conviction develops over time as species see the benefits of collaboration. And if some species try to exploit the Coalition structure for their own benefit, then they discover that 48 other species are watching them very carefully. Mutual accountability is surprisingly effective at preventing abuse. I accessed the tactical databases, reviewing humanity's methodology. Every action they had taken over the past 50 years had been designed to create exactly this moment. Not conquest, but unification. Not domination, but cooperation. You've been playing a game with rules we didn't even know existed, I said admiringly. The rules of survival, Captain Webb replied. When extinction is the alternative, species can accomplish remarkable things together. What's our next move? Integration, training, and rapid industrial expansion. We have 7 years to prepare for the final phase of construction. 7 years to build a weapon that can save the galaxy. And if the Devourers attack in force before then we buy time with blood and hope it's enough. The chamber's displays updated with new tactical projections. With full hegemony integration, Coalition survival odds increased to 85%. Not perfect, but manageable. One question, I said. Why start with military recruitment? Why not approach us diplomatically from the beginning? Captain Webb's smile returned, carrying that hint of superior knowledge that had first intrigued me. Because military cooperation requires trust, and trust requires proof of competence. We needed you to see that we were worthy allies before you would listen to our warnings. By defeating us repeatedly, by teaching you repeatedly, every battle was a demonstration that cooperation produced better results than competition. And if we had refused to learn, then the galaxy would have fallen with 20% odds instead of 85%. But humans are naturally optimistic. We believed you would see reason eventually. Acting Admiral Nex Prime activated his command authorization codes. All hegemony forces, this is Acting Admiral Nex Prime, stand down from combat operations and prepare for Coalition integration protocols. We have a galaxy to save. As our delegates began the formal integration process, I found myself reflecting on humanity's impossible achievement. They had taken a galaxy full of competing civilizations and united them against a common threat. Not through conquest or coercion, but through demonstration and mutual benefit. Captain Webb, I asked, what happens after the war? When the Devourers are defeated and the galaxy is safe, then we learn what civilization can achieve when species work together instead of against each other. She replied, the Coalition isn't just a military alliance, it's a prototype for galactic society. and humanity's role in that society. The same as everyone else's. We contribute what we can and learn from what others offer. The age of single-species dominance is ending. 3 months later, I stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship Harmony, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for the first major engagement with Devourer forces. Hegemony vessels flew alongside human ships, their crews working with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old military structure. "All vessels report ready," announced Fleet Admiral Parker. "Humanity's contribution to the joint command structure." "Hegemony forces standing by," confirmed Admiral Nex Prime. "Coalition fleet, prepare for quantum space transition," ordered Supreme Commander Vel 9, a Regalian whose tactical innovations had revolutionized Coalition strategy. The combined fleet entered the battle zone where 3-star systems were under active Devourer attack. What followed was the bloodiest engagement in galactic history. But for the first time, Coalition forces held their ground. Quantum-phased weapons tore through Devourer vessels while multidimensional shields deflected their reality-warping attacks. Species that had been enemies months before fought side by side, covering each other's weaknesses and amplifying each other's strengths. We lost ships. We lost crews. We lost 3 entire squadrons to a Devourer weapon that simply removed them from existence. But we held the line. And for the first time since the crisis began, the Devourers retreated. "Victory," whispered Chief Engineer Yosix, watching the enemy forces withdraw into whatever dimension they inhabited. "The first of many," Captain Webb replied. "But each one brings us closer to the synthesis array's completion." "How many more battles like this?" I asked. "As many as it takes," she said simply. "But we'll fight them together." As I watched Coalition forces begin rescue operations in the damaged star systems, I realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had created a civilization based not on conquest, but on cooperation, not on dominance, but on mutual dependence. The humans had indeed proven they were not to be underestimated. But not because they were better warriors than the rest of us. Because they were better at turning warriors into allies. And in a galaxy facing extinction, that skill might just save us all.